What is up, Blue Demon fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Demon Banter Podcast brought to you by WeAreDePaul. And I'm here with Scott. Scott, we're recording this right after DePaul's victory over Seton Hall. Let me get your instant reaction. DePaul beating Seton Hall. How does it feel?
It's a breakthrough win, Joey. I mean, we talked a little bit mid-game about some of the anguish DePaul was going through after that first half. It felt like DePaul outplayed Seton Hall in a lot of stretches there, but still found themselves down by 2 points, battling a little bit of foul trouble. The game is starting to slip away. Then the second half starts poorly. They've got a turnover. Seton Hall scores. They've got a bad near shot clock violation. It just was totally disjointed. A challenge call that finally goes DePaul's way changes the momentum for everything. And to see DePaul close out an NCAA tournament hopeful, a team on the bubble that needs to win a game, and to just beat them by double digits handily, I mean, it's a breakthrough win for them. They desperately needed a Big East road win. This was a decisive one.
Yep. First road win in Big East play this year, and this is their first quad one win this season. I mean, obviously at times inconsistent from DePaul, but an overall great win for them going on the road, a place where they have struggled. We know that they have struggled on the road to start Big East play. They went to Seton Hall. I thought they got off to a good start. Got tough at times. End of the first half, beginning of the second half. I thought that was where things could have turned for Seton Hall because Seton Hall went on that 7-0 run to end the first half, which it was the reason why Seton Hall led after the first half. And in the second half, Seton Hall continued to play better than DePaul. Seton Hall lead got out to 6-7. And then DePaul locked in, though. I think that's what makes this DePaul team so much different than years past because this is a team that, while they were at their low beginning of the second half with turnovers, like you mentioned, and shot clock violations and stuff like that, they found a way. They locked in, they played well, and down the stretch, it was all DePaul, highlighted by a 13-0 run to pull out in front DePaul and eventually win 69-57. I want to specifically talk about that 13-0 run later in the game, Scott. What did you kind of see during that stretch to help kind of DePaul kind of put this game out of reach?
Well, you just saw a calmness that didn't exist in so many other times over even the last two seasons under Chris Holtman. And I know that's not necessarily fair to put this roster in last year's roster perspective, but let's face it, there've been a lot of blown leads the last 2 years with this team, particularly in Big East play. Everybody is still thinking about that Xavier loss. It's fresh on the minds of DePaul fans, blowing that 18-point second half lead. So to really exercise those demons and to be in complete control and to have a decisive closing stretch really shows how far this team has come down the stretch, particularly when a guy like RJ Smith is on the floor and he is a non-factor offensively right now. I think he went scoreless tonight
You
in
did.
about 30 minutes of action, and they're still running great sets. They're getting good looks. It shows that they were exploiting mismatches. I think DePaul really matches up well against Seton Hall. Seton Hall has done a tremendous job of overhauling its roster through the portal this past season. We've talked a lot about how they've managed to build one of the best defenses in college basketball. They're number 12 in KenPom entering this game. They force a lot of turnovers. They can make plays. They're physical. But I think there are a lot of guys who are more of the mid-major spectrum of athleticism. And DePaul was able to take advantage. You see Brandon Macklin in particular with his bully ball style of play, blocker able to get downhill a couple times. And, in those last couple minutes, they exploited mismatches and made plays at the rim, particularly with Brandon Macklin. And NJ Benson deserves a ton of credit. He made a lot of plays in this game that didn't necessarily come in the first matchup. The first matchup between DePaul and Seton Hall, it was a guard-driven game. This time, NJ Benson really showed that DePaul's front court was a lot better than Seton Hall's front court, and it showed in the end of the box score.
Yeah, I think NJ Benson deserves a lot of credit for his play in this game. In that first matchup against Seton Hall, when DePaul did win at home, 2 points, 10 rebounds for NJ Benson. Only saw 17 minutes. He was a non-factor. He literally couldn't do much against Seton Hall's bigs. And this time around, um, NJ Benson was a big reason why DePaul is victorious in this game. NJ Benson was probably the best all-around player for DePaul in this game.
Absolutely.
21 points,
Absolutely.
8 of 9 shooting, 8 rebounds. Like he was such a good piece. And we've seen NJ Benson now come on strong here past two games, back-to-back games over 20 points. Entering his last year, this is kind of his last hoorah in college basketball. So he's starting to put things together. And going back to that 13-0 run, I thought, the whole game they couldn't shoot from three. Like the 3-point shooting has been a problem for them all year. It was a problem from the start. But in that 13-0 run, we saw Teo Pierre Justin back-to-back big-time threes. We saw CJ Gunn with a big three in the corner to put them up 12. Those moments, they lived for those moments, and they came through in the clutch, both of them. I just thought that DePaul has played well in both games against Seton Hall, and in both games they were the better team. And I'm going to ask you, I know your thoughts on Seton Hall. Do you want to see this team again, round three in the Garden in the Big East tournament?
Absolutely. I mean, DePaul is a physically superior team to Seton Hall. And I'm not saying that subjectively. Like, we've seen two matchups now where DePaul, a not particularly good offensive team, not a great three-point shooting team, has been able to just impose its will against Seton Hall. And Bud Clark is having a tremendous season. I like him quite a bit. But against a DePaul backcourt that features three physical players in Macklin, Blocker, and Smith, you can exploit that type of player. And they did so at will down the stretch. And, again, with Seton Hall, they've got a lot of talented players. I give Shaheen Holloway all the credit in the world. He really maximized this roster to its fullest. They utilize its press well. They do a lot of different things defensively to make things difficult. Their physicality shows through. They're great on set pieces. I mean, in the first half alone, they had that great set piece to get Simpkins that corner three-pointer. They had a really good cross screen below to get their backup big Hines a look when Banks was on him. I mean, they're really good out of set pieces. They're well coached. They're disciplined. But again, they're a team that's built through the transfer portal. They were picked to finish last in the Big East by more than a handful of publications entering the season, and they are outplaying their expectations. And DePaul can physically match this team. They've shown that they're not scared of them, and for them to sweep them and to do so decisively on the road in this matchup shows that they're the team that you would like to play at Madison Square Garden during the Big East tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And interesting, when we talked to Holtman on Tuesday, uh, before the win over Seton Hall, he talked about how the road effort in their last game against Providence on the road was not where it needed to be, and he acknowledged that
Yeah.
they had to be more physical. They had to give more effort on both sides of the ball. And I thought in this game against Seton Hall, they exactly did that. I
Yeah, he
thought they were
said he
physical.
said the Providence game was an anomaly. It was their worst game of the season. So I totally agree with you. But go on, Joey. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I also think it was. And Holtman said they needed more effort. The effort was not there, not up to their standards. And I thought that they showed that in the game against Creighton, beat them, and now they played on the road where, they've had some struggles and they went in to New Jersey and they showed a lot of effort from the start. I thought they showed a lot of effort. They were physical on both ends early on, and that kind of carried them throughout this game. And I think now we're at a point where now we're kind of looking ahead to Big East play, like that Big East tournament play, excuse me. 6 wins here. We're sitting in that middle of the pack here. And I think, DePaul has honestly been I think, one of the bigger stories here in the Big East. Like, you could talk about Villanova being as good as they are and UConn being as good as they are, and Seton Hall being, outside the bubble now, but on the bubble around them. But I think what Holtman has done in the second year with DePaul has to be talked about, and I think it is being talked about more around college basketball. Back, 2 years ago, they won 0 conference games. Last year, 4. Now he's up to 6 wins. DePaul is 6-9 here, heading to the final 5 regular season games. I just want to get your thoughts here, Scott, about the job Holtman has done here in year 2 as the Paul Blue Demons head coach.
I think they deserve a lot of credit, particularly the bounce back after the 4-game losing streak. There are a lot of question marks as to what this DePaul team might look like over the last 6 weeks of the season. They were facing a lot of adversity. They had been thoroughly outplayed against teams that were not the UConns and the St. John's of the world. And there were question marks facing the effort after the Providence game, which is something that you really couldn't point to for this DePaul team through the first couple months of the season. But now responding with back-to-back wins, you have matchups now against Providence, Marquette, and Butler, who are the bottom 3 teams in the Big East in your last 5 games. There's an opportunity here to get to 7 or 8 conference wins, which has seldom been seen since DePaul joined the Big East 20 years ago. So for Chris Holtman to kind of, I don't want to say backdoor this because they've been acquiring wins throughout Big East play, but again, they've been pushing forward and they've had a roller coaster season of ups and downs, but to kind of overcome this 4-game losing streak with back-to-back wins with this impressive win over Seton Hall, the way the defense especially has carried throughout the season, they've hovered around top 50 on KenPom throughout the year. I mean, look at the Seton Hall start in this matchup, Joey. They hit 3 early three-pointers. This is not a good three-point shooting team. Nobody expected this. It was outlier shooting. They blitzed DePaul for 13 points in the first 4.5 minutes. And for the next 35 minutes, they only score 44 points the rest of the game. That shows a lot of what this DePaul defense is capable of and what they are able to do when their game plan is effective in terms of icing ball screens and being more physically capable than their opponents. A lot of credit goes to this team for playing physically up to what Chris Holtmann was looking for. He said his antenna was up before this matchup about the physicality that Seton Hall presented. And DePaul answered that after a week off and after facing a finesse team like Creighton. The physicality was there. So, again, great win for this team. I think, again, it speaks to the world of all these players and the coaches to overcome that lull in the middle of the game where they had 6 turnovers in 8 possessions. They're going through adversity. They're not necessarily getting calls going their way. And then they just really – they didn't flinch. They don't flinch is the motto of this team, and they didn't flinch, and they really wrote it out till the end. Great win.
Yeah, one field goal for Seton Hall over the final 9 minutes. One field goal. That's fantastic from DePaul's defense. They locked in. They really did. And yeah, you mentioned it. DePaul, great win here. I thought it was an all-around strong effort. The defense especially was great down the stretch. One field goal last 9 minutes. And that, honestly, it's what they've been known for all year. It's been the staple. Defense leads to offense as well, and we saw that when they went on that 12-1, a lot of transition threes, and Teo was catching hot from the corner. So I thought fantastic all-around win, and with that win, DePaul's defense is now ranked 49th in defensive rating on KenPom.
Wow.
That might be their highest of the season, I believe. 49.
I think it might be.
I think it might be their highest of the season. Offense still not ranked high on KenPom at 174. But they're up to 100 now in KenPom ranking, which is they're slowly making the trek towards the double digits now. They're at 100, but that is continuing to dip in. And I would like to see DePaul. I would like to see them get to 8 wins this year. I think it would be a good season to get to 8 wins. I mean, now is even a good season knowing where DePaul was 2 years ago. But I think getting the 8 wins and doubling their win total in Big East play from last year from 4 to 8 would be a big time thing for DePaul. And you mentioned that they have Providence, Marquette, Butler, and they also have tougher games, Creighton and Villanova. So that's how they round out the Big East regular season. I just want to get what you're thinking about how DePaul fares in those 5 games. Kind of where do you predict how many wins, how many losses in those 5 games?
Yeah, I'm not really going to put a prediction at this point. I haven't thought about it. I'm still riding high off of this win. I didn't expect it. And I will say Butler's not nearly the same team as the first time DePaul faced them. Stink Robinson is out for the season now with a wrist injury, so he was very effective against DePaul in the first matchup. Finley Bizjack doesn't have that attacking guard to go off the dribble to find him all of a sudden. Marquette has struggled, so you try to make a win out of that despite how hard they're continuing to play. The Providence game this Saturday is really kind of the toss-up for me. I have zero clue what to think of this game because DePaul's effort was lacking in that first matchup. Their defense was lacking. You can see that Providence is deep and athletic. They're talented. They're not playing nearly up to what their record indicates. I think they're obviously, below expectations for the year, but this roster still has talent. So to take them lightly and to act as if DePaul is some sort of favorite would be, I think a poor choice there. But again, I think if they build on that momentum, they're able to get a win over Providence, then things get interesting down the stretch with those last 4 games, as you mentioned, Joey. They already showed that they can handle Creighton. That's an interesting matchup on the road where hopefully their physicality can shine through again. Yeah. Villanova, they get at home this time after outplaying them for 20 minutes the first time in Philly. You see if maybe you're a little bit closer down the stretch. 15 minutes, maybe at the under 4 timeout, you're within a possession or 2 like they were against St. John's. And then you're building momentum to Madison Square Garden. And, we saw it last year with DePaul. You get a win, you force Creighton to double overtime, you make things interesting, and you see what happens. And there's a lot of excitement. these last couple games to look forward to, and it starts with the defense, and it really goes with an emerging offense as well. I think they're finding a lot of really important things with Macklin as a secondary initiator.
Yeah, I love Macklin. Like I really do. Like the way he plays, it's just awesome to watch the way he plays. Like he wants to play bully ball. That's what he wants to do, and he did that tonight, Wednesday against Seton Hall, and he had some big buckets there, 10 points in 35 minutes. But I wanted to get your thoughts here because Holman always tells us that he doesn't care about the lineups. It doesn't matter to him who starts and whatnot. But I want to get your thoughts about CJ Gunn coming off the bench. It's been something new. He's not started the past 2 games, come off the bench. Been kind of the first guy to come off the bench. Tonight he came in after 3 minutes when Teo got into foul trouble early. So, but he still played. Still played 31 minutes at 18 points. Kind of what your thoughts are about CJ Gunn coming off the bench, whether you like it or whether you just want him to start.
Doesn't matter much to me, Joey, honestly. I think it's who closes the game and who's playing well in the second half. And CJ Gunn has shown that it doesn't bother him that he's coming off the bench based on a performance like today. So, if Holtman wants to play a little bit of mind games with his opponent with differing matchups or, having his best offensive weapon coming off the bench, then so be it. But, what matters is the result in the end. And that's CJ Gunn playing 31 minutes, delivering 18 points, being a key contributor on both ends of the floor. And as long as he is engaged on both ends as he has been since the new year, then DePaul's in a decent position to surprise some people because he's still a capable offensive player. And he's really improved defensively. He's not doing the crazy, over the top volleyball spike swipes that we used to see early in the year. Much more disciplined defensively. Like he had the foul tonight, putting the hand across Bud Clark's chest. That's going to happen. But, he's really tempered down those wild swings and those wild arm flails that he had before and not giving the officials an easy call to give him. So, again, if he's coming off the bench, if he's starting, doesn't matter to me. He seems to be unaffected either way.
Yeah, and I think his shot selection has also been better in recent games.
Yes, absolutely.
Holtman is. I know that's number one thing on Holtman tells CJ Gunn is he's got to be smart with the shot selection. I think that has been something that we've seen recently. Tonight, 5 for 12, but I thought he took some high quality shots and he made the shots when he needed to. That corner three in the corner when he made that with under 3 minutes to play and he hit the three. That was the game. Like that sealed the game right there. That's the closer right there for DePaul, the closer. But I know Holtman loved this aspect about CJ Gunn it's the 7 rebounds tonight against Seton Hall.
Yes, yeah.
Because he showed he was active on the defensive end too, grabbing those rebounds. I remember he came up with a big rebound late in the game as well, went up high for a rebound. So I know that aspect makes Holtman, proud and makes Holtman happy because those are the 2 things that Holtman has kind of stressed to CJ Gunn over the year. Better shot selection and playing defense, getting in position to grab a board. And 7 rebounds here for Gunn. Great mark for him, 18 points. Obviously, doesn't matter to CJ Gunn whether he starts or not. He's all about helping the team win, and he did that certainly tonight against Seton Hall. And before we end that episode, let's talk a little bit about the Providence and DePaul game on Saturday. We talked a little bit about it, but interesting game. DePaul was not ready against Providence. Providence really, really played better than them for the whole game. It was really a dominant showing. It was pretty much a dominant showing from Providence the entire game. But now you're at home. You're in front of the fans where DePaul has played well this season. The interesting thing I want to ask you here is offense versus defense. Providence 26th in KenPom in offensive rating. DePaul 49th in defensive rating. DePaul's offense not great. Providence defense not great. What gives in this game? What gives?
Paul's got to get stops. Plain and simple. I mean, that's their bread and butter. That is what has basically won them every single Big East game that they've won this year.
Yep.
And so when Providence was able to get up tempo and score on them at will and get their rotation really comfortable, I mean, think about it. Providence had key players in foul trouble in that first matchup and still won going away. So there are aspects to their offense that DePaul hasn't even necessarily seen yet that they are capable of showing in this matchup. So I'm not taking Providence lightly in the slightest. I know that Kim English is not having the season that they had hoped for and that this team has had a lot of ebbs and flows. But again, I think it's a difficult matchup for DePaul. They have the length and the athleticism to give them problems. They have the size inside to give a player like NJ Benson problems. And, this is going to be a real fight that their defense needs to step up on Saturday to earn this win. But again, I think that they're a different team at home. They play a little bit more confidence and
Yeah, a little bit.
swagger. There's some different shooting splits as well as we've talked about off pot a little bit. And again, I think that you got to stick with them. You can't let the crowd get out of it early. You got to get the crowd going. You're riding a 2-game winning streak. Get that momentum going with the crowd involved, and we'll see what happens from there. Try to build some momentum towards Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and RJ Smith, a better shooter at home than on the road. We talked about that.
Yes,
RJ Smith is a much better shooter at home than the road. The splits also back it up. At home, he's shooting 40% from three, on the road 26% from three. So
and that
that's a big
was
difference.
yeah, that was ahead of tonight's 0 for 3 as
Yes,
well.
exactly.
So
And he
he
went 0 for
is
3 from three tonight.
Yeah, he's sub 25% as a 3-point shooter on the road now this season. Clearly, he's a home shooter. And we knew that those hot, cold shooting splits were a potential factor based on his season last year at Colorado, where he was blistering hot to start the year. He got ice cold during Big 12 play. We're seeing that this year as well. I think he's 3 of his last 20 now shooting 3-pointers, and the misses look bad. He doesn't
Yeah.
look confident. It doesn't look like he wants the ball in his hands as an open shooter. The looks he had tonight were open as well. There's times where, look, a guy like Layden Blocker or RJ Smith has to hoist a late shot clock shot that they don't necessarily want to take that's contested. RJ Smith had in rhythm open threes tonight. It still wasn't close. They got to get him on track. He's got to get in rhythm now as a 3-point shooter. If they can unlock him, even making multiple 3-pointers a game, as was the case early Big East season, that offense is a lot more dangerous now.
Oh yeah, of course. It just gives them another shooter on the perimeter that can shoot. They don't have many of them. They don't have many of shooters that can shoot from beyond the arc consistently. So just getting them back on track is gonna be key. And the thing for DePaul is obviously the defense. DePaul is not going to beat anybody getting into a scoring slugfest. It's just not who they are. It hasn't been
No,
all year. They're not going to outscore someone by scoring 85 plus points. And I know Holtman was not happy with them allowing 90 points to Providence in their last meeting. So they have to lock in defensively. They have to just stop Providence because they're not going to score 75 plus points and win. They've only done it a couple times this year. They beat Marquette 80 to 75. So I just don't think that they are going to be able to outperform them, outscore them. They just got to go play defense to the wall.
one thing I'm curious about with Providence in this matchup, they're coming off of that major melee, if you will,
Hmm.
against St. John's with Duncan Powell and the flagrant and subsequent suspension coming against the Bryce Hopkins foul. So Providence hasn't played since then. They have a week off, kind of a similar position to where DePaul was coming off of that Creighton win, the rare 7-day off stretch in Big East play where you don't have that kind of 2-game-a-week stretch that they often play. So I'm curious to see what they look like coming off of a bad loss, a loss where I think multiple players were ejected and they're facing a suspension to their key big off the bench. That's kind of an underlying storyline that I'm curious about entering this matchup.
Yeah, that was yeah. Powell was suspended 3 games for the flagrant on Bryce Hopkins. So yeah, they do have a long layoff, similar how DePaul a long layoff this week. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think this is just a thing where DePaul's defense has to out stop the Providence offense. That's very good, and I think Providence is better than their record is. I think they're a better team. I think they've been better recently. So I'm interested to see how this game goes. I think it's going to be a nice fight between two teams that are, I think, playing better recently, and I'm excited to see how things shake up here. But great win for DePaul on Wednesday night against Seton Hall. Fantastic win, 2-game win streak. Now got to carry that into Providence, and that's going to do it here on this episode of the Blue Demon Banter Podcast, brought to you by WeAreDePaul. Make sure to subscribe to our free newsletter on WeAreDePaul.com. Scott and I and Steve Dan, who is there covering the game in New Jersey tonight, we'll have stories all throughout the rest of the season, including the Big East tournament. So make sure to subscribe to our free newsletter on WeAreDePaul.com. But what a win for DePaul tonight, and go
Great one.
Blue Demons. I'll catch you next time.